The north is cold and full of whispers.
Winterfell's Godswood was silent in the way that only ancient places could be silent, not empty of sound, but thick with it. The kind of quiet that came from trees older than kingdoms, and earth that remembered things men had forgotten. Jon Snow knelt before the heart tree, his breath misting in the cold air. The weirwood's face wept red sap like tears, its carved mouth frozen in a soundless scream. He did not pray. He had never learned how. The old gods did not need words, Ned said, but Jon had nothing to offer them except the weight in his chest and the question that had lived in him for 16 years. Why was I born? Behind him, the castle stirred. Dawn was coming. The royal party would depart today. King Robert Baratheon and his glittering Southron court, his golden-haired queen, and his cruel boy prince. All the lords and ladies who had filled Winterfell's halls for a fortnight while Bran lay broken in his bed. Bran, the thought of his little brother, not his brother, his cousin, though Jon did not know that, sent a fresh stab of pain through Jon's ribs. Bran had fallen from the first keep 2 weeks ago. Fallen, or been pushed. No one knew. The boy had not woken. Lady Catelyn sat vigil beside him day and night, her face hollow, her hands skeletal where they gripped Bran's small fingers. Yesterday Jon had gone to say goodbye. He had climbed the tower stairs to Bran's chamber, ghost padding silent at his heels. The dire wolf was massive now, nearly as tall as a pony at the shoulder, his white fur stark against the gray stone. Ghost's red eyes saw things Jon could not. The wolf had not wanted to enter that room. Jon had pushed the door open anyway. Catelyn sat beside the bed. She did not look up when Jon entered. Her hair hung lank around her face, unwashed, uncombed. She had not left Bran's side since the fall. Servants brought her food that went uneaten. Maester Luwin brought her sleeping draughts she refused to drink. "My lady," Jon had said quietly, "I've come to say goodbye to Bran." Catelyn's head had lifted then. Her eyes were blue and empty as winter sky. "It should have been you," she said. The words landed like blows. Jon had stood frozen, unable to speak, unable to breathe. Catelyn's gaze had already returned to Bran. She did not say anything else. She did not need to. "It should have been you." Jon had fled. Down the tower stairs, through the corridors, out into the yard where the cold air hit his face like a slap. Ghost had followed, silent as his name. Jon had walked until his legs gave out, until he found himself here in the Godswood with his knees in the dirt and his hands clenched so tight his nails drew blood. It should have been you. He was the bastard, the spare, the one who did not belong. Bran was trueborn, beloved, the boy who climbed higher than anyone and laughed like bells. Of course, it should have been Jon. The math was simple. The world would trade a Snow for a Stark without hesitation. But the world had not asked. Jon rose from his knees. His legs were stiff from kneeling. The sky was lightening to gray. In the distance, he could hear the sounds of departure. Horses being led from the stables, wagons loaded with chests and barrels, men shouting orders in the yard. Ned Stark was leaving for King's Landing today. He would serve as Hand of the King, Robert's chief advisor, the second most powerful man in the 7 kingdoms. He was taking his daughters, Sansa, who dreamed of knights and princes, and Arya, who dreamed of swords and wolves. He was taking 50 household guards. He was taking half the castle's stores and all of Winterfell's hope. He was not taking Jon. Jon had already asked Benjen Stark about joining the Night's Watch. His uncle had been kind but discouraging. "You're too young. Come back in a few years when you've seen more of life." The words had felt like dismissal, like being told to wait in the corner while the adults made decisions. And then Catelyn had said, "It should have been you." Jon walked through the Godswood. The path led back toward the castle, toward the yard where the departure was being organized. Ghost moved beside him like a white shadow, tongue lolling, breath steaming. The thought crystallized as Jon walked. "I will not be thrown away." He was unwanted at Winterfell. That had always been true. Catelyn's eyes had told him so since he was old enough to understand what a bastard was. But unwanted did not mean useless. He had trained with Robb under Ser Rodrik Castle's instruction. Since he could hold a wooden sword, he could fight, he could ride, he could serve. The yard was chaos. Horses stamped and snorted. Servants ran back and forth with bundles. The royal wheelhouse sat near the gate, gilded and ridiculous, built for Cersei Lannister who refused to ride. Near the wheelhouse stood the Stark party, Ned in his gray traveling cloak, Sansa in fine wool dyed tully blue, Arya in brown leather that looked like it belonged on a boy. Jon found Ned standing apart from the crowd, speaking quietly with Jory Castle. Jory was captain of the Winterfell Guard, a solid man with a soldier's face and a soldier's competence. He saw Jon approaching and nodded once before stepping away. "Jon," Ned said. His voice was tired. Lines had appeared around his eyes in the 2 weeks since Bran's fall. "You're up early. I wanted to speak with you, father." The word father felt strange in Jon's mouth. He had always called Ned that, but Catelyn's words yesterday had poisoned it somehow. "It should have been you." "Before you leave," Ned's gray eyes studied him. "Walk with me." They moved away from the noise, toward the armory where the sounds of departure faded to a dull murmur. Ghost followed 3 paces behind, his presence a comfort Jon did not examine too closely. "What's on your mind?" Ned asked. Jon took a breath. "I want to come south with you." Ned stopped walking. "Jon, not as your son," Jon said quickly. "I know I can't sit at the high table or attend court. I'm a bastard." "I understand what that means." The words came faster now, tumbling over each other. "But you're taking 50 guards to King's Landing." "Take 50. 1. I've trained with Sir Roderick same as Robb. I can fight. I can protect Sansa and Arya. I can serve the Night's Watch," Ned began. "Uncle Benjen said I'm too young," Jon interrupted. "That I should wait, so I'll wait. But I don't want to wait here." He met Ned's eyes. "Please, let me be useful. Let me do something that matters." Ned's expression was unreadable. He looked at Jon for a long moment, and Jon saw something complicated move behind his father's face. Grief, worry, something else Jon could not name. "This is about what Lady Catelyn said," Ned said quietly. "Isn't it?" Jon flinched. "She's right. It should have been me. Bran's worth more than I am. Everyone knows it." "No," Ned said, and there was steel in the word. "That is not true. Bran's fall is a tragedy, but your life is not worth less than his, Jon. Not to me, not to anyone who matters." "Then let me come with you," Jon said. "Let me prove I'm worth something." Ned was quiet for a long time. Ghost sat down beside Jon, the wolf's warmth pressing against his leg. "King's Landing is dangerous," Ned said finally. "The court is full of vipers, Littlefinger, Varys, the Lannisters. They play games that would make your head spin. I don't want you caught in that." "I'm a bastard," Jon said. "No one will notice me. That's the point. I'll be invisible." "That might be exactly what keeps you safe," Ned murmured, almost to himself. He looked at Jon again, and this time there was something like pain in his eyes. "You look like a Stark. You have the Stark face, the Stark coloring. As long as people see that, they won't ask questions about your mother." Jon blinked. The comment felt weighted, significant in a way he did not understand. "I've been meaning to talk to you about your mother," Ned continued. "About who she was. I promised myself I would, when you were old enough to understand." He paused. "The next time we see each other, Jon, the next time we have a moment of peace, I'll tell you everything, you have my word." Jon's chest tightened. He had asked about his mother only once, when he was very young. Ned had told him her name was Willa, that she was a Dornish wet nurse, and that Jon should not ask again. The closed door had been clear. Now Ned was offering to open it. "I'd like that," Jon said quietly. Ned reached out and gripped Jon's shoulder. His hand was warm through Jon's cloak. "If you come south, you serve in my household guard. You eat with the men, not at my table. You don't attend court functions. You're just another sword in my service. Understood?" "Yes, father." "And you keep your head down," Ned continued. "King's Landing is not Winterfell. People die there for saying the wrong thing to the wrong person. You watch. You listen. You don't draw attention." "Can you do that?" "I've been doing it my whole life," Jon said. Ned's mouth quirked in something that was not quite a smile. "I suppose you have." He released Jon's shoulder. "Go find Roderick. Tell him you're riding south with us. He'll assign you to the guard rotation." "And Jon?" "Yes. Thank you," Ned said, "for wanting to protect your sisters. That means more to me than you know." He turned and walked back toward the armory, Ghost at his heels, his heart hammering so hard he thought it might break through his ribs. He was going south. He was going to King's Landing. He would not be thrown away. Behind him, Ned Stark watched his bastard son walk away and felt the weight of 16 years of secrets pressing down on his shoulders like stones. The practice yard at Winterfell was hard-packed earth, scuffed and scarred by 1,000 boots and 1,000 blades. Weapon racks lined the walls, practice swords of blunted steel, wooden wasters for the boys, shields and spears and axes. The air smelled of sweat and leather and the particular sharpness of cold steel. Jon had spent half his life in this yard. He stood now at the edge, watching Ser Rodrik Cassel oversee the sparring. The old knight had a soldier's bearing despite his age, broad shoulders, thick arms, a bushy white mustache that seemed to have a life of its own. He barked instructions at Bran and Tommen Baratheon, two small boys paired together with padded practice swords. Tommen was soft and sweet-natured, golden-haired like his mother. He swung his sword with the careful precision of a child trying hard to please. Bran. Jon's chest clenched. Bran had been here a fortnight ago, laughing and quick, the best climber in Winterfell. Now Bran lay broken in a tower room, and Tommen sparred alone against a post. "Put your weight behind it, lad," Ser Rodrik called. "You're not tickling it, you're hitting it." Tommen adjusted his stance and swung again. The padded sword thwacked against the post with marginally more force. "Better," Rodrik allowed. Near the weapon racks, Prince Joffrey Baratheon stood watching with poorly concealed contempt. He was 14, tall for his age, with the same golden Lannister hair as his siblings. He wore a fine doublet of crimson silk, embroidered with golden thread, impractical for fighting, perfect for preening. "This is a waste of time," Joffrey announced loudly. "Ser Rodrik, I'll spar with Robb Stark, with live steel." The yard went quiet. Robb stood near the opposite wall, his own practice sword lowered. He was 16 like Jon, with tully auburn hair and blue eyes, the heir to Winterfell and everything that came with it. He met Joffrey's challenge with careful neutrality. "We use tourney blades here, your grace," Ser Rodrik said. His tone was respectful but immovable. "Blunted edges. Or we use wooden wasters. Those are your choices. I didn't come north to play with children's toys." Joffrey sneered. He turned to Robb. "What about you, Stark? Are you afraid of a real blade?" "I'm not afraid," Robb said evenly. "But Ser Rodrik sets the rules in this yard. If he says tourney blades, we use tourney blades." Joffrey's face flushed. He was not accustomed to being told no, even politely. His blue eyes, Lannister eyes, though Jon did not yet know why that mattered, scanned the yard for a softer target. They landed on Jon. "What about the bastard?" Joffrey said. The word came out like a slap. Surely a Snow isn't afraid of a prince. Every eye in the yard turned toward him. He felt the weight of their gazes, Robb's warning look, Ser Rodrik's cautious assessment, the guard's curiosity. "I'll spar with you, your grace," Jon said quietly, "with tourney blades." "I want live steel," Joffrey insisted. "Tourney blades or nothing," Ser Rodrik said flatly. "Those are the terms, your grace. Do you accept them?" Joffrey's mouth twisted. He clearly wanted to refuse, to storm off in princely outrage. But too many people were watching. Refusing would make him look like a coward. "Fine," Joffrey spat. "Tourney blades." Rodrik gestured to the weapon racks. "Pick your steel." Jon crossed to the racks and selected a longsword with a blunted edge. The balance was good, the weight familiar. He had used this blade 100 times. He knew its reach, its heft, the way it moved through air. Joffrey chose a similar blade, though he held it like it was a prop in a mummer's show. Too high, too tight, the stance of someone who had been taught the forms but never fought with real intent. They took positions in the center of the yard. The space cleared around them. Robb watched from the side, his face carefully blank. Near the gate, Jon caught sight of the hound, Sandor Clegane, Joffrey's sworn shield, leaning against a post with his arms crossed. The burned ruin of the hound's face was impassive, but his eyes tracked every movement. "First blood or yield," Ser Rodrik said. "No strikes to the head or groin. Begin." He came in with a high overhead cut, aggressive and flashy, the kind of move that looked impressive to people who did not know better. Jon sidestepped, letting the blade whistle past his shoulder. Joffrey overextended his weight too far forward, and Jon could have ended it there. A sharp strike to the ribs would have folded the prince like wet parchment. But Jon held back. Some instinct warned him that humiliating the prince too quickly would be dangerous, so he let Joffrey recover. Let him reset his stance, let him attack again. Joffrey lunged with a thrust. Jon parried, steel ringing on steel. The force of the block sent Joffrey stumbling. The prince snarled and came again, swinging wild now, abandoning form in favor of aggression. Jon read the pattern in seconds. Joffrey was undisciplined. His strikes were big and showy but predictable. He left himself open after every swing. He had been trained by someone who taught him to look dangerous, not to be dangerous. On the fourth exchange, Joffrey tried a diagonal cut that exposed his entire right side. Jon stepped inside the blow, batted Joffrey's blade aside with contemptuous ease, and delivered a controlled strike to the prince's ribs. Hard enough to sting, not hard enough to break anything. Joffrey gasped and stumbled back. "Point," Sir Roderick called. Joffrey's face went red. Again. They reset. This time Joffrey was more cautious, circling, feinting, trying to draw Jon into a mistake. But Jon had sparred with Robb for years. Robb was better than Joffrey would ever be. Joffrey lunged. Jon sidestepped and swept Joffrey's legs with his boot. The prince went down hard, his sword clattering on the frozen ground. Jon planted his boot on the flat of Joffrey's blade, pinning it. The yard was silent. Joffrey stared up at Jon, his face purple with rage and humiliation. For a moment, Jon thought the prince might try to stand, might try to continue the fight. But Sir Roderick's voice cut through the tension. "Yield, your grace." Joffrey's mouth worked. "I yield," Roderick repeated. "The match is over." Joffrey shoved himself to his feet. He tore his sword free from under Jon's boot and threw it toward the weapon rack. It clattered against the others and fell to the ground. "You'll regret that, bastard," Joffrey hissed. He turned and stalked from the yard, his golden hair catching the weak northern sun. The hound followed without a word, though Jon caught something in Sandor Clegane's ruined face. Not quite amusement, but close. Robb crossed to Jon, grinning. "That was well done. I just made an enemy." "You made an enemy the moment you were born a Stark," Robb said. "At least this way you proved you can fight." Sir Roderick approached, his white mustache bristling. "The prince will carry that grudge, Jon. Watch yourself." "I will, sir." "Good." Roderick clapped him on the shoulder. "Now go find your father. If you're riding south, you'll need to be ready by midday." Jon nodded and left the yard, Ghost falling into step beside him. Behind him, he heard Sir Roderick resume the lesson with Tommen, the old knight's voice patient and steady. But Jon's mind was elsewhere. He thought of Joffrey's face twisted with rage. He thought of the hound's flat, watchful eyes. And he thought of something Robb had said once after a hunt. "The worst enemies aren't the ones who try to kill you in the yard. They're the ones who smile and wait." Joffrey would not forget today. Neither would Jon. They departed at midday. The column stretched long. King Robert's glittering party at the front with banners flying. The Lannister contingent with their crimson cloaks and golden lions. The Baratheon men with their crowned stags. Behind them came Ned Stark's household. 50 mounted guards in gray and white, 2 wagons of supplies, and a wheelhouse for the girls. Jon rode near the rear, with Jory Cassell and the Winterfell men. He wore plain traveling leathers, a gray cloak and a sword at his hip, castle-forged steel from Micken's forge, good and sharp but unremarkable. On his saddle hung a bow and a quiver. Behind him, tied to one of the pack horses, was his bedroll and a small chest containing everything he owned. Ghost loped alongside his horse, the dire wolf's white fur bright against the muddy King's Road. People stared at the wolf. Some of the South-run lords pointed and whispered. Ghost ignored them all. Arya rode nearby, her brown hair tangled and her face set in a scowl. She had tried to ride with Jon at the very back, but Septa Mordane had hauled her forward toward the wheelhouse where Sansa rode in perfumed comfort with Queen Cersei and Princess Myrcella. Jon had caught Arya's eye as the Septa dragged her away. She had made a face that said everything about what she thought of wheelhouses and queens. The King's Road rolled south under gray skies. The north was still winter-brown, the trees bare, the fields frozen. They passed farms and holdfasts, small villages where people came out to watch the king's party pass. Children pointed at the dire wolf and their mothers pulled them back, making warding signs. Jon kept his head down and his mouth shut. He was a guardsman now. Just one more sword in Ned Stark's service. Invisible. The column made camp that first night near a crossroads inn. Pavilions went up for the king and queen, for the Lannister lords, for Ned and his household. The men built fires and ate salt pork and hard bread. Jon sat with Jory and the other guards, listening to their talk. Horses, women, the road ahead. Jory noticed Jon's silence. "You did well today, lad." Not many could keep up with the column pace on their first day south. "I've ridden before," Jon said. "Aye, but not like this." Not for weeks at a stretch. Jory tossed him a wineskin. Drink, you'll sleep better. Jon drank. The wine was sour and strong. It warmed his belly and loosened the knot in his shoulders. That business with the prince, Jory said casually. In the practice yard. Word of it spread. Jon's stomach tightened. I didn't mean to. Peace, lad. I'm not scolding you. Jory took the wineskin back and drank. But you should know, men are talking. Some of the king's guards saw the match. They're saying you fight like you've had proper training, knight's training. Ser Roderick taught me, Jon said. And it shows. Jory studied him. Just be careful. A bastard who fights too well draws attention, and attention in King's Landing is a knife that cuts both ways. I'll be careful, Jon said. See that you are. Jory stood and stretched. Get some rest. We ride at dawn. Jon found his bedroll near the horses. Ghost curled up beside him, the direwolf's body warm against the cold. Jon stared up at the stars and thought about what Jory had said. Attention is a knife that cuts both ways. He would have to be more careful. Watch more. Speak less. Be the bastard no one noticed. It should not be difficult. He had been practicing invisibility his entire life. 3 days south of Winterfell, the landscape began to change. The trees grew thicker, the air warmer. They crossed the last river and entered the neck, the vast swampland that separated the north from the south. The road narrowed to a causeway barely wide enough for 2 wagons abreast, with black water and twisted trees on either side. Moat Cailin rose in the distance, 3 massive towers of crumbling stone that had guarded the north for thousands of years. The towers were mostly ruins now, held by a token garrison, but their silhouette against the gray sky was still imposing. They did not stop at Moat Cailin. The column pressed on. South of the neck, the world opened up again. The riverlands stretched green and gentle, nothing like the harsh north. Jon saw farms with crops already sprouting, villages where children ran barefoot in the mud, holdfasts with banners he did not recognize, and everywhere small folk stopped their work to watch the king's party pass. On the 8th day, they reached the Trident. The river was wide and slow, its waters the color of old steel. Nearby stood a small inn called the Crossroads Inn, where the road from the Vale met the King's Road. The column made camp in the fields beside the river. Jon was checking his horse's hooves when Arya appeared. She looked like she had been rolling in mud. Her dress was filthy, her face smudged, her hair escaping its braid in wild tangles. She carried a stick that might charitably be called a practice sword. Jon, she said, breathless. Come with me. I need your help. Help with what? But he's afraid he'll hurt me, so he won't fight properly. If you're there, he'll know it's all right. The camp was busy with men setting up tents and building fires. No one was watching the bastard and the wild Stark girl. All right, Jon said, but stay close to camp, and if the Septa comes looking for you, I'll tell her I was with you. Arya said quickly. Come on. They found Micah 100 yards downstream, near a stand of willows. He was the butcher's boy from Winterfell's party, a gangly 13-year-old with red hair and freckles. He held a stick similar to Arya's and looked profoundly uncomfortable. "My lord," Micah said when he saw Jon. He bobbed his head nervously. "Jon's not a lord," Arya said. "And you don't have to be so formal. We're just practicing." "Right, milady." Arya rolled her eyes and took a fighting stance. Jon recognized, feet apart, weight balanced, stick held low. Syrio Forel's water dancer stance, though Jon did not know that name yet. Micah swung his stick half-heartedly. Arya blocked it and whacked him on the arm. Ow! They circled and struck, Arya quick and precise, Micah hesitant and clumsy. Jon watched with half an eye, the other half scanning the riverbank. Ghost sat beside him, panting, his red eyes watching the practice with canine interest. The sound of hooves made Jon turn. 2 horses approached along the riverbank, fine destriers, one ridden by Sansa, the other by Prince Joffrey. The prince wore a white silk doublet and a golden cloak, completely unsuited for riding along the muddy river. Sansa looked like she had stepped out of a song, her auburn hair shining, her dress the blue of Tully banners. "What's this?" Joffrey said, reining in his horse. His eyes landed on Micah and Arya with their sticks. "Playing at swords? How charming." Arya lowered her stick. "We're practicing." "You're playing," Joffrey corrected. He dismounted and approached Micah. "You there, butcher's boy. You're hitting a highborn girl with a stick." Do you have any idea what the punishment is for striking a lady? Micah went pale. She asked me to, my lord. We were just what? Joffrey drew his sword. It was not a tourney blade. The steel gleamed sharp and bright in the afternoon sun. The pommel was a golden lion's head. Lion's tooth, the blade was called, though Jon did not know that yet. Your Grace, Jon said, stepping forward. They were practicing. No harm was meant. Joffrey turned to him. Recognition flickered in the prince's eyes. Recognition, and something colder. The bastard. Joffrey said, I should have known you'd be involved in this. I'm not involved in anything, Jon said carefully. My sister asked me to watch while she practiced. That's all. Your sister is playing at swords with a peasant, Joffrey said. It's unseemly. She should be in her pavilion, learning needlework or some other womanly art. He turned back to Micah. And you should learn your place. He flicked Lion's tooth toward Micah's face. The blade's point pricked the boy's cheek, drawing a thin line of blood. Micah cried out and stumbled back. Joffrey, stop, Sansa said, her voice shrill. You're hurting him. He needs to learn respect, Joffrey said. Arya stepped between them, her stick raised. Leave him alone. Joffrey turned on her. Get out of my way, you stupid little girl. He swung Lion's tooth in a casual arc toward Arya. Jon moved. He did not think, did not plan. He simply stepped in front of Arya and drew his sword, the castle-forged steel clearing its sheath with a whisper of metal on leather. Lion's tooth met Jon's blade with a sharp clang. Joffrey stumbled back, his eyes wide. You drew steel on me. You drew steel on a girl, Jon replied. His voice was calm, but his heart hammered. Put the sword down, Your Grace. I'm the prince. Joffrey's face was red now, rage and humiliation warring in his expression. You can't. The attack was wild, uncontrolled, nothing like the careful forms from the practice yard. Jon deflected the blow with contemptuous ease, angling his blade so Joffrey's sword slid off harmlessly. Joffrey stumbled, off balance. His boot hit a root, and he went down hard, Lion's tooth flying from his hand and landing in the mud. Jon did not attack. He simply stood over the fallen prince, his sword point lowered, and planted his boot on the flat of Lion's tooth. Stay down, Jon said quietly. For a moment, Joffrey stared up at him with something that might have been fear. Then the fear transmuted into pure venomous hatred. I'll have your head for this, Joffrey spat. You threatened the prince. That's treason. That's... Jon stopped a fight. Arya interrupted. She stepped to Jon's side, her stick still in hand. You attacked Micah and me. Jon protected us. That's a lie. Joffrey scrambled to his feet, dripping mud. They attacked me. The butcher's boy and the bastard. I saw what happened, Sansa said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. She sat on her horse, pale and frightened, but her voice was steady. I saw you prick Micah with your sword, Sansa continued. I saw you swing at Arya. Jon stopped you from hurting her. That's what I saw. Joffrey's mouth opened and closed. He looked at Sansa like she had struck him. You're lying, he said. You're taking their side? Against me? Joffrey stared after her, then turned to Jon. This isn't over. He snatched up Lion's tooth from under Jon's boot, shoved it into its sheath, and swung onto his horse. He rode after Sansa, his golden cloak billowing behind him. When he was gone, Arya let out a shaky breath. Are you all right? I'm fine, Jon said. His hands were steady, but his mind raced. I just drew steel on the prince. In front of witnesses, Joffrey will tell the king. I'll be arrested, executed. We should go back to camp, Jon said. Now, Micah touched his bleeding cheek with trembling fingers. My lord, I'm sorry. I didn't mean... It's not your fault, Jon said. But you should disappear for a while. Stay out of sight. Don't let the prince or his guards see you. Micah nodded and ran, vanishing into the willows. Arya looked up at Jon. You saved me. You would have done the same, Jon said. I would have hit him with my stick, Arya corrected. You stopped him without hurting him. That was better. Jon was not sure it was better, but he said nothing as they walked back to camp, Ghost padding silently beside them, the white wolf's red eyes watchful as always. King Robert held court in a pavilion that evening. The tent was large enough to hold 40 people, hung with banners of crowned stags and golden lions. At the center sat Robert Baratheon, king of the Seven Kingdoms, slouched in a camp chair with a wine cup in his hand. He was fat now, his belly straining against his doublet, his black beard shot with gray. But his eyes were still sharp, and his voice could fill a room. Ned stood at the king's right hand. Queen Cersei stood at the left, her beautiful face cold and remote. Around the pavilion's edges stood guards, Kingsguard in white cloaks, Lannister men in crimson, Stark guards in gray. Jon was not inside the pavilion. He stood outside with the other household guards, listening to the raised voices within. Joffrey's voice, shrill and accusing, "Attacked me! The bastard and the butcher's boy? They drew steel and tried to kill me." Arya's voice, sharp and defiant, "That's a lie. Joffrey drew first. He hurt Micah and tried to hurt me." Sansa's voice, quieter but clear, "I saw Joffrey swing his sword at Arya. Jon stopped him." Cersei's voice, venomous, "This boy, this bastard, drew steel on the heir to the Iron Throne. That is treason, your grace. He should be arrested immediately, flogged, sent to the wall in chains." Robert's voice, annoyed, "For the love of the gods, Cersei, they're children fighting with sticks and swords. This happens every day in every training yard in the Seven Kingdoms. He threatened our son. Your son threatened a girl half his size." Robert's voice rose. "I've heard the testimony. Joffrey drew first. The bastard stopped him. If anyone should be punished, it's the boy who can't keep his sword in its sheath." Silence. Then Cersei's voice, low and dangerous. "You take their side. Against your own son." "I take the side of what happened," Robert said. "Ned, is your bastard a troublemaker? Jon has always been respectful and obedient, your grace. He does not seek conflict." There you have it. Robert's chair creaked as he shifted his weight. "The matter is settled. No one is flogged. No one goes to the wall. The children will stay away from each other for the remainder of the journey. And Joffrey," the king's voice hardened, "you will keep Lion's Tooth in its sheath unless you're in a practice yard with proper supervision. Understood?" A long pause, then Joffrey's voice sullen, "Yes, father." "Good. Now get out, all of you. I want to drink in peace." The pavilion flap opened. Arya emerged first, her face flushed but triumphant. Sansa followed, pale and frightened. Then came the queen, her green eyes blazing with cold fury. She swept past the guards without a glance. Joffrey came last, flanked by the hound. The prince's face was purple with rage. When his eyes landed on Jon, standing among the Stark guards, something ugly flickered across his features. "This isn't over, bastard," Joffrey hissed as he passed. Sandor Clegane followed his charge without comment, but as the hound walked by Jon, their eyes met for just a moment. The burned man's gaze was flat, unreadable. Then he was gone. Jon released a breath he had not realized he was holding. Jory appeared at his elbow. "You've made an enemy, lad." "I know. Not just the prince, the queen too. She wanted you punished." Jory shook his head. "Watch yourself in King's Landing. The Lannisters don't forget." "I'll be careful." "See that you are." Jory clapped him on the shoulder and walked away. Jon stood in the gathering darkness, ghost pressed against his leg, and thought about what had just happened. He had drawn steel on a prince. The queen wanted him flogged. Joffrey wanted him dead. And somehow, he had walked away unpunished. But Jory was right. The Lannisters would not forget. Neither would Joffrey. Jon touched his sword hilt and wondered if coming south had been a mistake after all. King's Landing rose from the hills like a fever dream. Jon saw it first from a distance of 3 miles, the morning sun catching the Red Keep's towers and turning them to flame. The city sprawled across 3 hills, Rhaenys Hill with its dragon pit ruins, Visenya's Hill crowned by the great sept of Baelor, and Aegon's High Hill where the Red Keep stood like a threat carved from red stone. The smell reached them before the walls did. It hit Jon like a physical blow. 500,000 people crammed inside walls meant for half that number, their waste running through the streets and open sewers, the harbor's salt and fish rot mixing with smoke from 1,000 cook fires, and the sickly sweet stench of tanneries. Jon's horse tossed its head and snorted. Ghost's hackles rose, the white direwolf's red eyes fixed on the distant walls. 7 hells, Jory muttered beside Jon. "I'd forgotten how it stinks." The column pressed forward. They entered through the King's Gate on the southwestern wall, passing beneath the portcullis into streets that narrowed almost immediately. Buildings rose 3 and 4 stories on either side, blocking out the sun. Washing hung between windows like ragged banners. Small folk pressed against the walls to let the king's party pass. Hollow-eyed men, gaunt women, children with distended bellies. Jon had never seen poverty like this. In the north, even the small folk had land, space, clean air. Here people lived stacked atop each other like cordwood, breathing each other's breath, sharing each other's diseases. The column wound upward through the city, climbing Aegon's high hill toward the Red Keep. The streets widened slightly as they rose. The higher the elevation, the richer the district. By the time they reached the Red Keep's gates, the stench had faded to something almost bearable. The Red Keep was a castle within a city, surrounded by its own walls, its own garrison. 7 massive drum towers anchored the walls, each named for a different god. The castle proper was a labyrinth of halls and courtyards, towers and bridges, all built from pale red stone that seemed to drink in sunlight and glow like embers. The party dismounted in the outer yard. Servants swarmed forward to take horses, carry chests, guide the nobles toward their chambers. Jon stayed with the Winterfell guards, watching as Ned was swept away by courtiers, and Sansa and Arya were collected by Septim Ordain. "Stark men, with me," Jory called. The guards followed him through a side gate into a smaller courtyard, then through a door into the barracks. The room was long and low-ceilinged, lined with bunks and weapons racks. A hearth at one end provided heat. Windows near the ceiling let in gray light. "Pick a bunk," Jory said. "Stow your gear. We'll rotate guard duty starting tonight. 6-hour watches, 4 men at a time. The rest of you are free to explore the city, but stay in pairs and stay out of trouble." He dropped his pack and sat, feeling the exhaustion of 28 days on the road settle into his bones. Ghost lay down beside the bunk, the direwolf taking up an absurd amount of floor space. "Your wolf can't stay in the barracks," one of the guards said. His name was Heward, a thick-set man with a scar across his chin. "He stays with me," Jon said. "He's as big as a horse. There's no room." "He stays with me," Jon repeated, meeting Heward's eyes. Hayward held his gaze for a moment, then shrugged. "Your funeral if he eats someone." Jon lay back on the bunk and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere above him, in the towers of the Red Keep, Ned was settling into the Hands Chambers. Sansa and Arya were being shown to their rooms in Maegor's Holdfast, the castle's inner keep. The royal family was returning to their palace, and Jon Snow, bastard of Winterfell, was exactly where he belonged, in the barracks with the other swords. Invisible. The Tower of the Hand stood at the southeastern corner of the Red Keep, a squat 4-story cylinder of pale red stone. It had its own entrance, its own small ward, and enough space to house the hand of the king and his entire household. Jon was not inside it. He stood in the yard outside, sparring with Aelin, one of the younger Winterfell guards. They used practice swords with blunted edges, circling on packed dirt while Ghost watched from the shade of the tower wall. Aelin was quick but predictable. He favored his right side, telegraphed his strikes with his shoulders. Jon deflected a thrust, stepped inside Aelin's guard, and tapped him lightly on the ribs. "Point," Jory called from where he sat on a bench, cleaning his sword. Again, Aelin came harder this time, pressing Jon back with a flurry of strikes. Jon gave ground deliberately, watching Aelin's footwork, waiting for the opening. There, Aelin overextended on a high cut. Jon dropped low, swept Aelin's legs and put his practice blade to Aelin's throat as the guard hit the ground. "Yield," Aelin agreed, breathless. Jon helped him up. Sweat ran down both their faces despite the cool morning air. They had been at it for an hour. "You're getting better," Jon said. "You're getting faster," Aelin replied. "Where'd you learn that leg sweep?" "Robb used to do it to me all the time. I figured out the counter, then figured out how to use it myself." The captain of the guard tossed them a water skin. Jon drank deeply, then poured some into his hand for Ghost. The direwolf lapped it up with a tongue the size of a hand. "You fight well, Jon," Jory said. "Better than most boys your age, but fighting well in a practice yard and fighting well in a real fight are different things. Remember that." "I will." Jory stood and stretched. "Lord Stark wants to see you, in his solar. Go clean up first. You look like you've been rolling in mud." "He doesn't explain himself to me." Jory's expression softened slightly. "But you're not in trouble, lad. He just wants to talk." Jon nodded and headed for the barracks. He washed his face and hands in a basin, changed into a clean tunic, and ran his fingers through his hair in a futile attempt to make it less wild. Ghost followed him through the corridors to the Tower of the Hand. The tower's interior was surprisingly comfortable. Thick carpets, tapestries on the walls, torches in iron brackets that kept the shadows at bay. Jon climbed the spiral stairs to the third floor where Ned's solar was located. He knocked on the heavy oak door. "Come," Ned's voice called. Jon entered. The solar was a large room with windows overlooking the Blackwater Rush. A massive desk dominated one end, covered with papers and ledgers. Bookshelves lined the walls. A fire crackled in the hearth. Ned sat at the desk, his gray eyes tired. He wore the Hand's badge, a golden hand on a chain, over a simple gray doublet. He looked older than he had at Winterfell, the lines around his mouth deeper. "Jon," Ned said. "Sit." Jon sat in the chair across from the desk. Ghost lay down at his feet, the direwolf's chin resting on his paws. "How are you settling in?" Ned asked. "Well enough, father. The barracks are fine. The men are good. And the city? I've only seen it from the road, but it's different from the north. Different is one word for it." Ned leaned back in his chair. "I wanted to talk to you about what happened at the Trident with Joffrey." Jon's stomach knotted. "I'm sorry, father. I didn't mean to cause trouble." "You stopped the prince from hurting your sister," Ned said. "I'm not angry about that. I'm grateful. But the queen is not as forgiving. I heard her in the king's pavilion. She wanted me flogged. She wanted worse than that." Ned's expression was grim. "Cersei Lannister is a dangerous woman, Jon. She doesn't forget slights. She nurses grudges like other women nurse babies. And you've given her a target. What should I do? Stay away from the royal family. All of them. Don't speak to Joffrey unless he addresses you directly. Don't be alone with any of them. And don't—" Ned paused, choosing his words carefully. "Don't give them any reason to notice you. You're a bastard in my household guard. That's all. Not a threat, not important. Just another sword. I understand." "Good." Ned stood and moved to the window. He stared out at the city, his hands clasped behind his back. "There's something else. I've been summoned to a small council meeting this afternoon. The king's advisors. I'll be meeting them for the first time. Varys, Littlefinger, Grand Maester Pycelle, Renly Baratheon. These are dangerous men, Jon. Clever men. They play games I don't fully understand yet. Why are you telling me this? Because I may need your help." Ned turned to face him. "You were right when you said a bastard can go places a lord cannot. You can walk through the city without drawing attention. You can ask questions in taverns and markets that I can't ask in council chambers. You can see things I can't see." Jon's pulse quickened. "You want me to be your eyes. I want you to be careful," Ned corrected. "But yes, if I need information, if I need someone to follow a lead without making it official, I may ask you to help. Can you do that?" "Yes, father. It won't be easy, and it may be dangerous. There are people in this city who kill for knowing the wrong things. I'll be careful." Then he crossed to Jon and gripped his shoulder. "I'm glad you came south. I know you did it to protect your sisters, but it means more to me than that. It means I have someone I trust in this viper's nest." "I won't let you down," Jon said. "I know you won't." Ned released him and returned to his desk. "Go. Get some rest. I'll send for you if I need you." Jon stood and headed for the door. Ghost rose and padded after him. "Jon," Ned called. Jon turned. "Thank you for coming, for being here." Jon nodded, not trusting his voice, and left the solar. As he descended the stairs, his mind raced. Ned wanted him to be useful, wanted him to gather information. It was more than Jon had dared hope for. Not just protection duty, but real work. Important work. He would not fail. The small council met in a chamber in the Red Keep's main building, a round room with a table painted to resemble a map of the Seven Kingdoms. Jon had heard about it from Jory, the council chamber where the realm's business was conducted, where wars were planned and taxes levied and laws debated. Jon was not inside it, but later that evening, Ned told him what had happened. They sat in the solar again, Ned nursing a cup of wine, Jon listening as the hand of the king described his introduction to the Vipers. "Robert wasn't there," Ned said. "He's off hunting already, barely in the city a day. The council meets without him most of the time." Renly Baratheon, Robert's youngest brother, sat at the head of the table in the king's absence. He's master of laws, barely 21, more interested in fashion than justice. "What about the others? Lord Petyr Baelish, they call him Littlefinger. Master of coin. He's a clever little weasel from the Vale, who's climbed higher than his birth should allow. He smiles too much and talks in riddles. Ned's mouth twisted. He knew your mother, Catelyn. Grew up with her at River Run. He asked about her. Jon said nothing. The reminder that Catelyn existed, that she was Jon's, not his mother, never his mother, made his chest tight. Varys is the master of whisperers, Ned continued, a eunuch from across the narrow sea. Powdered and perfumed like a woman. He knows things, Jon. Things he shouldn't know. He knew you were with me, knew your name, knew Ghost, and he smiled when he said it, like it was all a game. Nothing. I gave him nothing. But Varys doesn't need you to give him information. He already has it. Ned drank his wine. Then there's Grand Maester Pycelle. Old, wheezing, seems half asleep most of the time. But his eyes are sharp. He's been on the council for decades, served 3 kings. Men like that survive by knowing when to speak and when to keep silent. And Renly? Charming. Handsome. Useless. Ned set his cup down. They told me the realm is 6 million gold dragons in debt. 3 million owed to the Lannisters alone. Robert spends money like water. Tournaments, feasts, hunts. The crown is drowning and no one seems to care. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. Ned rubbed his face. Robert wants a tournament to honor my appointment. 40,000 gold dragons for a melee and a joust. 40,000 we don't have. I tried to talk him out of it. He wouldn't listen. They sat in silence for a moment. The fire crackled. Ghost snored softly from his place near the hearth. There's one more thing, Ned said quietly. After the meeting, Littlefinger pulled me aside. He mentioned the previous hand, Jon Arryn, Robert's foster father, said Arryn had been asking questions before he died. Visiting people in the city. Strange people. An armorer. A brothel. Jon frowned. Why would the hand of the king visit a brothel? I don't know. But Arryn died of a fever 2 weeks later, and now I'm sitting in his chair, surrounded by his papers, trying to understand what he was looking for. Ned met Jon's eyes. I may need you to visit that armorer. Ask questions. See what Jon Arryn wanted to know. When? Soon. Let me learn more first. But be ready. Jon nodded. I will be. The hand's tourney began a week after their arrival in King's Landing. The tourney grounds lay outside the city walls, a broad field where pavilions rose like a canvas city. Banners flapped in the wind, the crowned stag, the golden lion, the rose of Highgarden, the sun and spear of Dorne. Thousands of small folk crowded the rail fences, pressing close to see the knights. Jon watched from the lower stands, seated among the household guards and men-at-arms. He wore his sword but not his armor. This was a spectator's perch, not a fighter's. Ghost lay at his feet, drawing stares from the nearby crowd. Children pointed at the white wolf with wide eyes. Their mothers pulled them back, whispering. The jousting had lasted 2 days. Thunder of hooves, crack of lances, the roar of the crowd when a knight fell. Jon had watched Sir Loras Tyrell unhorse Sir Gregor Clegane, the mountain that rides, by using a mare in heat to distract Gregor's stallion. He had watched the mountain decapitate his own horse in rage, then attack Loras with a greatsword, until the hound intervened. Brothers fighting, steel ringing, until King Robert bellowed for them to stop. Today was the melee. Nearly 40 men entered the field, armored and armed with blunted weapons. The rules were simple. Last man standing won. Yielding was allowed. Death was discouraged, but not impossible. The horns sounded and chaos erupted. Jon watched knights pair off, trading blows, seeking advantage. He saw men he recognized from the road south. Sir Balon Swan of the Stormlands, Sir Aeron Santagar, others whose names he did not know. The fighting was fierce but controlled, tourney rules enforced by marshals on horseback. And then Jon saw someone who made him sit forward, a knight in soot-stained armor, his breastplate scorched black, wielding a flaming sword. Thoros of Myr, Jory said from beside Jon. Priest of R'hllor, the Red God. He dips his blade in wildfire before every fight, makes quite the show. The flaming sword whirled and struck, setting cloaks alight, forcing men back through sheer spectacle. Thoros fought with a priest's wild fervor, laughing as he swung. One by one, opponents yielded or were beaten down. Jon studied the fighting styles, cataloging what he saw. Thoros was aggressive but reckless, Sir Balin Swan was cautious, defensive, waiting for mistakes. A Reach Knight fought with a Morning Star, using reach and momentum to drive back sword wielders. And then Jon saw movement at the edge of the field. An unnamed fighter in plain armor, no blazon on his shield, fighting with economical precision. The Mystery Knight moved like water, deflecting blows rather than blocking them, using his opponent's strength against them. The knight disarmed a man twice his size with a twist of the wrist that sent the larger man's sword flying. Then a quick strike to the back of the knee, and the big man was down. "Who is that?" Jon asked. Jory squinted. "Don't know. No sigil. Could be a hedge knight, or a lordling fighting incognito for the glory of it." The Mystery Knight eliminated 2 more opponents before Thoros came for him. The flaming sword versus the plain blade. Fire versus water. They circled. Thoros swung with theatrical fury. The Mystery Knight gave ground, patient, waiting. Then Thoros overextended, just slightly, just enough, and the Mystery Knight was inside his guard, blade cracking against Thoros' helm with a sound like a bell. Thoros staggered. The Mystery Knight struck again, this time at the legs, and Thoros went down. The crowd roared. But the Mystery Knight had no time to savor the victory. 3 more fighters converged on him, sensing a chance to eliminate a dangerous opponent. The knight fought brilliantly, holding off all 3, but numbers told. A mace caught his shield arm. A sword struck his helm. The knight went to one knee. "Yield," one of the marshals called. The Mystery Knight raised his sword in salute, yielding with grace, and withdrew from the field. Thoros of Myr was declared the winner. As the crowd cheered and coins changed hands on wagers, Jon caught sight of the Mystery Knight removing his helm at the edge of the field. Dark hair spilled out, a young face, maybe 20, with a strong jaw and steady eyes. The knight looked directly at Jon for just a moment. Then he turned and walked toward the pavilions, disappearing into the crowd. "Wish I could fight like that," Jon murmured. "You fight like that already," Jory said. "You just haven't done it with 40 men trying to kill you at once." 3 days after the tourney, Ned sent Jon into the city. "The Street of Steel," Ned said, handing Jon a folded piece of paper. "There's an armorer there named Tobho Mott, a master smith from Qohor. Jon Arryn visited him several times before he died. I want to know why." Jon took the paper. "What should I ask him?" "Use your judgment. You're a boy looking for a good blade. That's your excuse for being there. See what he'll tell you. See what you can learn. Should I take someone with me? Take Ghost. No one will trouble you with that wolf at your side. But go alone. 2 men asking questions draw more attention than 1. Jon left the Red Keep through the King's Gate and made his way into the city proper. The streets were narrow and steep, climbing toward Visenya's Hill where the armorers and smiths had their workshops. The higher he climbed, the louder the sound of hammering became, a constant metallic percussion that echoed off stone walls. The Street of Steel was exactly what its name suggested, a street lined with smithies and armories, every building belching smoke and ringing with the sound of metal on metal. Jon passed shops selling swords, daggers, axes, maces, every weapon imaginable. The air smelled of coal smoke and hot metal. Ghost drew stares everywhere they went. People pressed against walls to let the direwolf pass. Shopkeepers came to their doors to watch. Jon ignored them all and kept climbing. Tobho Mott's shop sat at the summit of Visenya's Hill, just below the Great Sept of Baelor. The building was larger than the others, with a sign showing a hammer and anvil. Through the open door, Jon could see a forge burning hot and bright. He stepped inside. The heat hit him like a wall. 3 forges burned along the back wall, tended by apprentices who worked bellows and sorted tools. The walls were hung with examples of the master's work, breastplates chased with gold, helms shaped like lions and dragons, swords with hilts wrapped in silver wire. At the largest forge, a boy hammered at a piece of steel. He was 13 or 14, tall and powerfully built, with dark hair matted with sweat. He struck the metal with rhythmic precision, shaping it with skill beyond his years. "Can I help you?" a voice asked. Jon turned. A man in a leather apron stood near the door. Tobho Mott himself, Jon assumed. He was middle-aged, balding, with the thick forearms of someone who had spent a lifetime working a forge. "I'm looking for a sword," Jon said. "Something well made. I was told you're the best smith in the city." Mott's eyes narrowed slightly. Then he saw Ghost and his expression changed. Surprise, then calculation. "That's quite a wolf. His name is Ghost. And yours, Jon?" He did not offer his surname. A bastard could be anyone. Mott studied him for a moment longer, then nodded. I have swords. What's your price range? I want to see your work first. Then we'll talk price. Jon examined them with the eye Ser Roderick had trained, checking the balance, the quality of the steel, the craftsmanship of the hilt. They were good, very good, better than anything Mikan could have made in Winterfell's forge. These are excellent, Jon said honestly. I trained in Quohor, Mott said. We know steel there, know how to work it properly. These are castle-forged quality at a third the price. The hand of the king came here, Jon Arryn, before he died. Mott's expression shuddered. Did he? If he bought something, the hand could afford any blade in the 7 kingdoms, Mott said carefully. He didn't need mine. Then why did he come? Mott glanced toward the forge where the dark-haired boy still hammered. He came to see my apprentice. The boy had stopped working and was watching them, his blue eyes sharp and curious. Why would the hand care about an apprentice? Jon asked. You'd have to ask the hand that question, Mott said. But seeing as he's dead, I suppose you can't. The boy at the forge set down his hammer and walked over. Up close, Jon could see he was powerfully built, with broad shoulders and thick arms. His eyes were a vivid blue, almost unnaturally bright. Who's this? The boy asked Mott. A customer, maybe, if he can afford anything. The boy looked at Jon, then at Ghost. That's a dire wolf. I'm Gendry, best apprentice in the city if you ask me, which no one does. He studied Gendry's face, the strong features, the blue eyes, the black hair. Something about him was familiar, though Jon could not place why. You a lordling? Gendry asked. No, just a guardsman. Guardsmen don't usually buy swords from master smiths. They use whatever the Lord gives them. I like good steel. Gendry laughed. Don't we all? He picked up the long sword Jon had been examining. This one's mine. I made it. Well, most of it. Master Mott finished the hilt, but the blade's all me. It's good work, Jon said honestly. Good enough the old hand wanted to meet me, Gendry said. There was pride in his voice. Came here 3 times, asked me questions about my mother, my father, wanted to know who paid for my apprenticeship. Jon's pulse quickened. Who did pay for it? Don't know. Some lord. Master Mott won't say. Gendry set the sword down. The hand seemed to think it mattered, kept staring at me like I was a puzzle he was trying to solve. Jon looked at Gendry again, really looked. The black hair, the blue eyes, the strong build. And suddenly he understood what Jon Arryn had seen. King Robert had black hair and blue eyes. Robert was powerfully built, had been a warrior in his youth, and Robert had fathered bastards all over the 7 kingdoms. Gendry looked like Robert Baratheon. Jon felt his heart hammering. Did the hand say anything else? Just asked about my mother. She died when I was little. Worked in an alehouse. Yellow hair, they said. Gendry shrugged. Don't remember her myself. Thank you for showing me the blade, Jon said. He needed to leave. Needed to report to Ned. I'll think about it and come back. Sure you will, Gendry said, grinning. Jon left the shop and walked quickly down the street of steel, Ghost at his heels. His mind raced. Jon Arryn had been investigating King Robert's bastard children. Why? What did it matter? Unless it mattered very much, unless there was something about Robert's children, his legitimate children, that made the bastards important. Jon did not understand it yet, but he knew Ned needed to hear this. He started running. Ned listened to Jon's report in the solar, his face growing grimmer with each word. Black hair and blue eyes, Ned repeated when Jon finished. Strong build. Looks like Robert. And Jon Arryn visited him 3 times, asked about his parents, about who paid for his apprenticeship. He stared out at the city for a long moment. There's a brothel on the Street of Silk, Ned said quietly. Littlefinger told me Jon Arryn went there too. Before he died, I need you to go there tomorrow. See what you can find. A brothel? Jon's voice cracked slightly. You're 16. You won't be the youngest man to visit a whorehouse. Ned turned to face him. There's a woman there named Megan. She has a baby girl. Find her. Look at the child. Tell me what you see. I don't understand what you're looking for, Father. I'm not sure I do either, Ned admitted. But Jon Arryn was looking for something. Something about Robert's bastards. And 2 weeks after his investigation, he was dead. The words hung in the air like smoke. You think someone killed him, Jon said, because of what he learned. I think it's possible. Ned's expression was bleak. And if that's true, then whatever Jon Arryn discovered is dangerous enough to kill for, which means we need to know what it was before. He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Before someone kills us, too. The street of silk ran along the base of Rhaenys' hill, a wide avenue lined with brothels, taverns, and pleasure houses. It was more elegant than Jon had expected. Buildings painted in soft colors, gardens behind iron gates, silk curtains in every window. Even the name was a euphemism, wrapping vice in velvet. Jon walked the street at midday when it was least crowded. Ghost padded beside him, drawing the usual stares. A dire wolf on the street of silk was absurd enough to be memorable. But Jon had no choice. Ned had insisted Ghost come. The wolf was protection and deterrent both. He found the brothel Ned had described, a 3-story building painted pale blue, with a sign showing a lamp. The door stood open. Music drifted out, a woman singing in a language Jon did not recognize. He stepped inside. The entrance hall was dim and perfumed. Silk hangings covered the walls. A woman sat on a cushioned bench near the stairs, middle-aged, painted, wearing a dress cut low enough to be scandalous by northern standards. "Well," she said, looking Jon up and down. "Aren't you a bit young for this?" "I'm looking for Megan," Jon said. "I have coin." The woman's eyes flicked to the purse at Jon's belt. "Megan's busy. Come back tonight. I'll pay double," Jon said. "Just to talk. That's all." The woman studied him for a long moment. Then she shrugged. "Your coin. 3rd floor. Last door on the right. If the baby's crying, you'll know you found the right place." Jon climbed the narrow stairs, Ghost following. The 2nd floor had doors on both sides, some closed, some open to reveal beds and mirrors. Voices and laughter echoed from behind the closed doors. Jon kept climbing. The 3rd floor was quieter. He walked to the last door on the right and knocked. "Who is it?" A woman's voice called. "A customer. I just want to talk." A pause. Then the door opened a crack. A young woman peered out, 20 or so, with brown hair and tired eyes. Behind her, Jon could hear a baby fussing. "Talk?" Megan said. "Men don't come here to talk. I'll pay anyway. Please, just a few minutes." Megan studied him, then sighed and opened the door wider. "Come in, but if you try anything, I scream and men will come." Understood. The room was small but clean. A bed against one wall. A cradle near the window where a baby lay wrapped in blankets. Megan moved to the cradle and picked up the child, holding her against her shoulder and swaying gently. "What do you want to know?" Megan asked. "Your baby," Jon said. "Can I see her?" Megan's expression shifted, surprised, then wary. "Why?" "Please. I'm not here to hurt you. I just need to look at her." Slowly, reluctantly, Megan turned so Jon could see the baby's face. The child was perhaps 3 months old, with fat cheeks and tiny fists. And she had black hair, a full head of it, dark as midnight. Jon's breath caught. "What's her name?" he asked. "Bara." "Who's her father?" "I need to know. Please, it's important." "Why? Who sent you?" "No one. Jon hesitated. "I'm trying to help someone. Someone who wants to know about the king's bastard children. You should leave, please." "The old hand came here asking the same questions," Megan said. Her voice was tight with fear now. 2 weeks later he was dead. "I don't want any part of this. Leave. Just tell me." "The king," Megan hissed. "The king is her father, Robert Baratheon. He came here drunk and happy and he was kind to me. And 9 months later I had Bara. That's what the old hand wanted to know. That's what got him killed. Now leave before it gets me killed too." Jon backed toward the door. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to frighten you." "Just go," Megan said. She was trembling now, clutching Bara close. "And don't come back." Jon left. He descended the stairs quickly, Ghost at his heels, and pushed out into the street. His heart was racing. Black hair. Gendry had black hair. Bara had black hair. Robert's bastards all had black hair. But Robert's legitimate children, Joffrey, Myrcella, Tommen, they were all golden-haired. Jon walked back toward the Red Keep, his mind spinning. He did not understand the significance yet. But Ned would. Ned had to, because Jon Arryn had died for this. And somewhere in the pattern, black hair, golden hair, bastards and princes, There was a secret worth killing for. Jon just hoped Ned could figure it out before it was too late. The Tower of the Hand had a library. It was a small room on the second floor, lined with shelves that held the accumulated wisdom of every hand who had served before. Histories, lineages, ledgers, law books, the dry machinery of governance bound in leather and gathering dust. Jon found Ned there 3 days after his visit to the brothel, surrounded by books spread across a heavy oak table. The hand of the king had not slept well. Jon could see it in the shadows under his eyes, the tightness around his mouth. "Father," Jon said from the doorway. Ned looked up. "Jon, come in." Close the door. The wolf settled near the hearth where a small fire burned. "I found something," Ned said. He gestured to the open book before him, a massive tome with pages yellowed by age. "This is the lineages and histories of the great houses of the Seven Kingdoms, written by Grand Maester Mallion. Jon Arryn had it out before he died. Pycelle told me Arryn read it obsessively in his final weeks." Jon moved closer. The book lay open to a page of dense text, listing marriages and births going back generations. "Look at this," Ned said, pointing. "Every Baratheon marriage for the past 90 years. Ormond Baratheon married Rhaegar Targaryen. Their children had black hair. Lyanna Baratheon married Jane Swan. Black hair. Tya Lannister married Goen Baratheon. The chronicle describes their son as a large and lusty lad born with a full head of black hair. The seed is strong. That's what Jon Arryn said before he died. The Baratheon seed is strong. It dominates. Always. Every time a Baratheon mates with another house, the children have black hair." Jon's throat was dry. "Robert's bastards all have black hair," Ned finished. "Gendry, Bara, every other bastard Robert has fathered across the Seven Kingdoms. I've sent men to find them, to look at them. They all have black hair and blue eyes, without exception. But Joffrey is golden-haired," Ned said quietly, "as are Myrcella and Tommen. All 3 of Robert's legitimate children look nothing like him. They are Lannisters to the bone. Golden hair, green eyes, features that echo their mother and their uncle." The implication crashed over Jon like a wave. "They're not Robert's children." "No," Ned said. "I don't believe they are." "Jaime Lannister." Ned said nothing, but his silence was confirmation enough. "The Queen and her brother," Jon whispered. "They're not anywhere. This is the most dangerous secret in the Seven Kingdoms, Jon. Do you understand? If Cersei knows we suspect, if the Lannisters realize what we've learned, they'll kill us," Jon said, "like they killed Jon Arryn. Perhaps, though I have no proof it was murder. Arryn fell ill with a fever. That's the official story. But the timing," Ned shook his head. "It doesn't matter. What matters is that Joffrey has no claim to the throne. He's a bastard born of incest. When Robert dies, the crown should pass to Stannis Baratheon, Robert's younger brother. Does Stannis know? I don't know. Jon Arryn and Stannis were close in those final weeks. Arryn may have shared his suspicions, but Stannis left King's Landing abruptly after Arryn's death, and he hasn't returned. He's at Dragonstone now, with his fleet and his garrison." Ned closed the book. "I need to tell Robert. He has a right to know that the children he thinks are his are not. That his wife has been lying to him for 14 years. "And then what?" Jon asked. "Robert will want Cersei and Jaime dead. He'll want Joffrey disinherited. The Lannisters won't accept that. Tywin Lannister will go to war rather than see his grandchildren stripped of the throne." "I know." Ned's face was gray, "but the truth is the truth. I won't let a bastard born of incest sit the Iron Throne. I won't." He stopped. His eyes met Jon's, and something terrible passed between them. Jon was a bastard, not born of incest, but still a bastard. And if anyone discovered the truth about his parentage, that he was not Ned's son, but Lyanna's, that Rhaegar Targaryen was his father, he would be a threat to every king in Westeros. The parallel was too close, too painful. "I'll do what I must," Ned said quietly. "For the realm, for Robert, for the truth." "When will you tell him?" "When he returns from his hunt. He left 3 days ago, chasing a white hart in the Kingswood. He'll be back within the week." Outside, the city sprawled under gray skies. "Until then, we keep this secret close. You, me, no one else. What about Sansa and Arya? The less they know, the safer they are." Ned turned to face him. "Jon, I need you to promise me something. If anything happens to me, If this goes wrong and the Lannisters move against us, I need you to get your sisters out of the city. Get them to safety. Can you do that?" Jon's stomach nodded. "Nothing's going to happen to you, father. Promise me anyway." "I promise." He looked older than he had at Winterfell, bent under the weight of secrets and duty, and the terrible knowledge that sometimes honor demanded actions that honor should forbid. "Go," Ned said. "Stay with the guards. Practice in the yard. Be ready." Jon left the library, Ghost at his heels. As he descended the stairs, his mind churned. Joffrey was a bastard. The prince who had drawn steel on Arya, who had threatened Micah, who hated Jon with pathological fury. That prince was nothing. A lie. A cuckoo in the royal nest, and Jon Snow, the bastard everyone dismissed, carried that secret like a blade pressed against his ribs. The practice yard behind the Tower of the Hand was small but functional. Packed dirt, weapon racks, a few straw dummies for sword practice. Jon spent every morning there now, drilling with the Winterfell guards, working his body until exhaustion pushed thought away. He was there when Arya found him. She appeared at the yard's edge, needle in her hand. The slender Braavosi blade Jon had given her at Winterfell. She had been training with Syrio Forel, the Braavosi water dancer Ned had hired as her instructor. The training showed. Her stance was different, lighter, her weight on the balls of her feet. "Jon," she called. He lowered his practice sword. Aelin, his sparring partner, stepped back gratefully and went to drink water. "What is it?" Jon asked. Arya crossed to him, her face flushed with excitement. "Syrio says I'm getting good. He says I move like water now, not like a stone. Do you want to see?" Arya took her stance. Feet apart, knees bent, needle held low and loose. Jon had seen Syrio in the corridors a few times, a thin Braavosi man with a bald head and eyes that missed nothing. The stance Arya showed now was his, translated into a child's body. Jon picked up a wooden practice sword. "Show me." Arya attacked, not the wild charging Jon remembered from Winterfell, but controlled, precise. She came in low, needle flickering toward his legs. Jon deflected. She flowed around his parry like water, exactly as Syrio had taught her, and tapped him on the shoulder. "Point," Jon said, grinning. Again. They circled and struck, wood against steel, Jon holding back, Arya pushing forward with fierce concentration. She was fast. Faster than Jon had been at 11. And she had something he had never possessed. Pure, uncomplicated joy in the movement. "You're good," Jon said, when they paused. "Really good." "I want to be great," Arya said. "I want to be a knight, or a king's guard, or, I don't know, something that matters. You matter already, not like Sansa." Arya's mouth twisted. "She's pretty and proper, and everyone loves her. She's going to marry Joffrey and be queen. And I'm just the wild one, the one who doesn't fit." Jon knelt so they were eye level. "Listen to me. Fitting in is overrated. I should know. I've never fit anywhere my entire life. You can fight. You can help Father. You matter. So do you. Father hired Syrio because he believes you deserve to learn the sword, because he sees your worth. So do I." Jon gripped her shoulder. "Don't try to be Sansa. Be Arya. That's more than enough." Arya's eyes were bright. She nodded, not trusting her voice. "Now go," Jon said, "before Septa Mordain realizes you're missing and sends a search party." Arya hugged him quickly, fierce and sudden, and then ran off, needle bouncing at her hip. Jon watched her go and felt the promise he had made to Ned settle heavier on his shoulders. "If anything happens to me, get your sisters to safety." He would, whatever the cost. King Robert returned from his hunt on a litter. The courtyard erupted into chaos when the royal party rode through the gates. Men shouted for the maester, for servants, for help. Jon was in the barracks when the commotion started. He grabbed his sword and ran outside, Ghost at his heels. The litter was surrounded by men, royal guards, hunters, hangers-on. Blood soaked through the silk covering. Someone was screaming. A high, terrible sound. "Make way," a voice bellowed. "Make way for the king." The crowd parted. Jon caught a glimpse of the litter's interior. Robert lay on his back, his massive belly exposed. A wound gaped there, deep and ragged, the kind of injury a boar's tusk could make. Blood poured from it, more blood than Jon had ever seen, soaking the litter and dripping onto the stones. The king's face was gray. His eyes were half closed. He was alive, but barely. Grand Maester Pycelle hurried across the courtyard, his chain clinking, servants carrying his supplies. He climbed onto the litter and bent over the king, his wrinkled hands probing the wound. "Get him inside," Pycelle ordered. "The tower, now." Gently, men lifted the litter. They carried Robert toward the keep, the crowd following. Jon saw Ned in the press, his face carved from stone, moving with the king. Jon started to follow, but Jory grabbed his arm. "Not you. Guard duty. The girls need protecting." "From what?" "From whatever comes next," Jory said grimly. Jon ran to Maegor's holdfast where Sansa and Arya were housed. He found them in Sansa's chambers, Sansa pale and crying, Arya standing by the window with her hand on Needle's hilt. "Is the king dying?" Sansa asked. "I don't know," Jon said honestly. "He has to. If he dies, Joffrey becomes king. And then," her voice broke. Arya turned from the window. "If Joffrey's king, we're stuck here. Stuck with him forever. Father won't let that happen," Jon said. Though even as he spoke, he wondered if Ned could stop it. If Robert died before Ned could tell him the truth, Joffrey would be crowned. And then what? Civil war? The Lannisters would never surrender the throne peacefully. "Stay here," Jon said. "Both of you. Don't leave these rooms unless Father sends for you. Understand?" "What about you?" Arya asked. "I'll be outside. If you need me, call." Ghost lay down beside him, the direwolf's red eyes watching the shadows. Hours passed. Servants hurried by with basins of water, with linens, with wine. Jon heard weeping from somewhere deeper in the holdfast. Night fell. Torches were lit. Still Jon waited. Finally, near midnight, Ned appeared. He looked like a man who had aged 10 years in a single day. "Father," Jon said, standing. "Walk with me." Ned's hand rested on Jon's shoulder, gripping hard, as if he needed the contact to stay upright. "Robert is dying," Ned said quietly. "The boar gored him. The wound is deep. Pycelle says there's nothing to be done. A day, maybe 2, and then—" "Did you tell him?" Jon asked. "About Joffrey? I can't tell a dying man his children are bastards. I can't take that from him in his last hours." "Then what will you do?" "He made me protector of the realm, in front of witnesses. Until Joffrey comes of age, I rule in his name." Ned stopped walking and turned to face Jon. "I wrote the decree differently than Robert intended. I wrote my rightful heir instead of Joffrey's name. It gives me room to challenge the succession later, to push for Stannis. Will the council accept that? I don't know. Renly offered me soldiers. He wants to seize Joffrey and Cersei before they can move against us. I refused. I won't shed blood in the castle like the Kingslayer did." Ned's face was haunted. "But I'm not a fool. I know the Lannisters will act. So I've made arrangements. Littlefinger has promised to secure the city watch. The gold cloaks, 2,000 men. With them on our side, we can control the city, arrest Cersei and her children if necessary, hold them until Stannis arrives from Dragonstone." Ned gripped Jon's shoulders. "It will be done peacefully. I'll give Cersei a chance to flee with her children. Take them into exile. Spare them the shame of a trial. She'll accept. She has to." Jon's stomach churned. "And if she doesn't, then we have the gold cloaks. We have the truth. We have the law." Ned's voice was firm, but Jon heard the uncertainty beneath. "It will work, Jon. It has to." King Robert Baratheon died at dawn 2 days later. Jon was not there. He was in the barracks when word came. The guards fell silent, men crossing themselves, muttering prayers. A king was dead. The realm would mourn. But Jon felt no grief. He had barely known Robert. The king had been a stranger, loud, drunk, larger than life, but ultimately unknowable. Jon's grief was for Ned, who had lost his oldest friend, for the realm which was about to tear itself apart. The bells began to ring an hour later. Every sept in the city tolled its bells, the sound rolling across King's Landing like waves. The king is dead. Long live the king. Except the new king was a bastard born of incest. And Ned Stark was the only man in the city who could prove it. Jon armed himself. Sword, dagger, a light mail shirt under his leather. He found Jory in the yard, organizing the household guard. "What's happening?" Jon asked. "The council meets this afternoon. Lord Stark will present Robert's will, naming him protector. Then," Jory shook his head, "then we see if the Lannisters fight or flee. Where do you need me?" "Understood?" "Understood." Jon went to Maegor's holdfast. He found Arya with Syrio Forel in the training hall, the Bravosi teaching her footwork. Sansa was in her chambers, red-eyed from crying. "The king is dead," Sansa said when Jon entered. "Joffrey is king now. He sent word he wants me to attend him this afternoon." In the throne room. "You're not going," Jon said. "I have to. He's the king. He's my—" She stopped. "Father will be there. It will be safe." "Sansa, listen to me. I'm tired of listening." Sansa's voice rose. "I'm tired of being locked in these rooms. I'm tired of everyone treating me like a child. Joffrey is king, and I'm going to be queen, and I'm going to the throne room." Sansa, who dreamed of songs and princes, who could not see the vipers surrounding her. "Please," Jon said quietly. "Trust father. Trust me. Don't go to the throne room today." "You're just jealous," Sansa said. "You've always been jealous that I'm trueborn and you're not. That I matter and you don't." The words hit like a slap. Jon stepped back, his throat tight. "Fine," he said. "Go. But when it all falls apart, remember I tried to warn you." He left before she could respond. In the corridor, he leaned against the wall and fought to breathe. Ghost pressed against him, whining softly. "She doesn't understand," Jon whispered. "She doesn't see it." But Jon did. He saw everything. The trap closing, the pieces moving, the moment approaching when everything would break. And he had promised Ned he would save them. He had to be ready. The throne room was chaos. Jon was not inside it. Bastards did not attend court. But he could hear it from the corridor outside, voices raised, steel on steel, screaming. It had started an hour ago. Ned had entered the throne room with a dozen guards, the rest of the household stationed outside. Joffrey was already on the Iron Throne, that monstrosity of melted swords that had killed more than one king. Cersei stood beside it. The King's Guard flanked them in white cloaks and armor, and along the walls 100 gold cloaks stood with spears. Jon had not been allowed inside. Jory had stationed him in the corridor with orders to guard the entrance, but he had heard everything. Ned's voice, reading Robert's will, declaring himself protector of the realm. Joffrey's voice, young and cruel, demanding oaths of fealty. Cersei's voice, mocking. A paper shield. Joffrey has no claim. Stannis is the rightful heir. Silence. Then Joffrey's shriek. "Seize him! Seize them all!" And Jon heard Littlefinger's voice, smooth as oil. "I did warn you not to trust me." The gold cloaks had turned. Not for Ned, for the Lannisters. Jon drew his sword and burst through the door. The throne room was carnage. Ned's guards lay dead or dying, cut down by gold cloaks and Lannister men. Jon saw Fat Tom with a spear through his back, saw Varley's throat cut, blood pumping onto marble. And Ned stood in the center of it all, held by Lannister guards, Littlefinger's dagger pressed to his throat. "Jon, run," Ned shouted. Jon froze. 20 gold cloaks blocked the throne room exits. More were pouring in through side doors. Cersei stood beside the Iron Throne, smiling, her green eyes glittering with triumph. "The bastard, too," Cersei said. "Seize him." Not toward the throne room. That was death. He ran back through the corridor, Ghost at his heels, gold cloaks shouting behind him. He knew these passages, had mapped them, had prepared for this. He ran toward the Tower of the Hand, toward Arya, toward the way out. The Tower of the Hand was under attack. Jon burst through the door to find Lannister soldiers in the halls, swords drawn, killing anyone they found. He saw Desmond go down fighting 3 men, his blades slick with blood. Saw Hullen, the master of horse, cut down trying to defend the stables. "Arya!" Jon shouted. "Arya." No response. Jon ran through the corridors, Ghost beside him, both of them moving on instinct now. The training hall, Syrio Forel had been teaching Arya there. Jon reached the hall and found a nightmare. 5 Lannister guards lay dead or dying, disarmed by a Bravosi with a wooden practice sword. Syrio Forel stood in the center of the carnage, breathing hard, his wooden blade broken. And advancing on him was Sir Meryn Trant, a Kingsguard knight in full plate armor. Arya stood behind Syrio, needle in her hand. "Run, boy," Syrio shouted at Jon. Jon did not run. He stepped into the hall, drew his sword and said, "Arya, with me." "Now." Meryn Trant turned, his white cloak swirling. "Another bastard, the Stark whelp. The queen wants your head." "She can try to take it," Jon said. Meryn advanced. Jon did not try to fight him. A Kingsguard in full plate was beyond his skill. Instead, he grabbed Arya's arm and ran, dragging her with him. Behind them, Syrio Forel laughed and attacked Meryn with his broken stick, buying them seconds. Jon did not look back. He pulled Arya through corridors, downstairs, toward the cellars. Ghost led the way, the direwolf's instincts guiding them to safety. "Jon, where are we going?" Arya gasped. "Out! Away! Just run!" They reached the cellars. The Tower of the Hand had a hearth in the lower levels. Arya had discovered it weeks ago while chasing cats. A small door, barely large enough for a child, opening onto a shaft that led down. Jon tore open the door. "Inside. Climb down. Go." Arya went. Jon followed, Ghost somehow squeezing through after them. The shaft was dark and narrow, iron rungs descending into blackness. Jon counted as he climbed. 50 rungs, 100, 200, 230. They reached the bottom, a chamber with a mosaic on the floor, the three-headed dragon of House Targaryen. 6 tunnels led away in different directions. "Which way?" Arya whispered. Jon closed his eyes and remembered the map he had made in his head. This one. He led them down a tunnel that smelled of earth and age. The walls were ancient stones, fitted so tightly no mortar showed. This was old. Older than the Red Keep, older than Aegon's conquest. They walked for what felt like hours. Ghost padded ahead, the white wolf's fur barely visible in the darkness. Jon kept one hand on the wall, the other gripping Arya's hand. Finally, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber. Dragon skulls. They loomed in the darkness, massive beyond comprehension. Balerion the Black Dread, his skull so large 3 men could walk through his jaws. Meraxes, Rhaegar, the dragons that had conquered Westeros 300 years ago. Arya stared, her mouth open. "Come on," Jon said. "Almost there." They passed through the skull chamber and found another tunnel. This one sloped upward, the air growing damper, the smell changing from earth to sewage. They were close. The tunnel ended at an iron grate. Beyond it, Jon could hear water running. He pushed the grate open and they climbed through into a sewer that emptied into the Blackwater Rush. They were free. Jon pulled Arya through waist-deep filth until they reached the river. They waded in, the cold water shocking, washing away the worst of the sewage. When they reached the far bank, they collapsed on mud and stone, breathing hard. Ghost shook himself, spraying water everywhere. Arya started to cry, great, gasping sobs. Jon held her, his own tears hot on his face. "Father," Arya choked. "They have, Father. I know. We have to go back. We have to save him. We can't. Not now. Not alone." "Then what do we do?" Jon looked back at King's Landing. The Red Keep rose on its hill, torches burning in windows. Somewhere in those walls, Ned was imprisoned. Sansa too, probably. The Lannisters had won. But not completely. "We go north," Jon said. "We get to Winterfell. We tell Robb what happened, and then—" His voice hardened. "Then we come back with an army." The Braavosi trading galley Storm Dancer was 3 days out of King's Landing when Jon and Arya found her. They had hidden in the harbor district for 2 days, stealing food, sleeping in abandoned buildings, watching the docks. Jon had coin from Ned, emergency money the Hand had given him weeks ago, enough to buy passage north. The captain was a hard-faced woman named Ternesio Terrace. She looked at Jon and Arya, filthy, exhausted, clearly running, and named her price, 50 silver stags, each, to White Harbor. They sailed with the evening tide. The city shrank behind them. Jon stood at the rail, Ghost beside him. Arya pressed against his other side. They watched the Red Keep disappear into the distance. "Will we ever see them again?" Arya whispered. "Father? Sansa?" "Yes," Jon said. "I swear it. We'll get them back." But as the city vanished and the open sea stretched before them, Jon wondered if he was lying. They had escaped. But the cost, Ned imprisoned, Sansa hostage, the household slaughtered, was almost too much to bear. Jon touched the sword at his hip and made a silent promise. To Ned, to himself, to the north. "I will come back. With Robb, with an army. And the Lannisters will pay for every drop of Stark blood they've spilled." The voyage north took 12 days. Jon and Arya barely spoke. They slept below decks, ate the ship's rations, and tried not to think about what was happening in King's Landing. On the 13th day, White Harbor appeared on the horizon. Winterfell, The castle rose from the plains like a promise kept. Grey walls, smoke from the chimneys, banners flying the direwolf of House Stark. Home. Jon and Arya rode through the gates on horses Lord Wyman Manderley had provided. The courtyard erupted when the guards recognized them. Shouts, running feet, people pouring from every door. And then Robb was there. He grabbed Jon in a crushing embrace. Then Arya, his face twisted with relief and grief and rage. "What happened?" Robb demanded. "Where's father? Where's Sansa?" "The Lannisters have them," Jon said. "They betrayed us, killed the guards. Father's in the black cells. Sansa's a hostage. We barely escaped." Robb's face went white, then red. "Tell me everything." They walked to the great hall. The northern lords were already there. The Great Shan, Rose Bolton, Meigs Mormont, all the bannermen who had gathered when word came that something was wrong in the south. Jon told them everything. The investigation, Jon Arryn's death, the truth about Joffrey's parentage, Robert's hunting accident, the betrayal in the throne room. When he finished, the hall was silent. Then the Great Jon slammed his fist on the table. "Lannisters, bastards and oathbreakers, the lot of them. They'll pay for this." "They will," Robb said quietly. His voice was ice. "Send the ravens, call the banners, every house, every man who can hold a spear." "You mean to march south?" Maggie Mormont asked. "I mean to get my father back," Robb said. "And my sister. And then I mean to take Cersei Lannister's head for what she's done." The lords roared approval. Swords were drawn and raised. The call went out. Within days, riders left Winterfell carrying Robb's message. Within weeks, the armies began to gather. 20,000 men, then 30,000, the largest host the North had mustered in generations. And Jon Snow stood in Winterfell's courtyard, watching them come, and felt the weight of his promise settle into certainty. They were going to war. 6 weeks after fleeing King's Landing, Jon stood in Winterfell's great hall and watched Robb Stark be crowned king in the North. It had happened almost by accident. Robb had meant to march south to fight for Ned's freedom, but word had come from the south. Stannis Baratheon had sent letters to every lord in Westeros proclaiming Joffrey's illegitimacy, declaring himself the rightful king. The Southron lords were fracturing. The Reach backed Renly Baratheon, Robert's youngest brother, who had also crowned himself. The Lannisters held King's Landing and the Crown Lands. The Stormlands were divided, and the North was done kneeling. "Why should we fight for Stannis?" the Great Jon had roared. "Why should we fight for any of them? The Starks have ruled the North for 8,000 years. We need a king in the North." The other lords had taken up the cry. "The king in the North, the king in the North." But the crown was not offered. It was demanded. The North would have its king. So Robb knelt before the heart tree in the Godswood and swore his oaths. And when he rose, he wore a bronze circlet on his brow, the crown of the kings of winter, retrieved from Winterfell's crypts. Now he sat in the high seat of the great hall, and the northern lords knelt before him, one by one, swearing fealty. Jon watched from the side of the hall. He was not a lord. He had no lands, no titles, just a bastard who had saved the king's sister and carried the truth north. But when the ceremony ended and the lords dispersed, Robb came to him. "Jon," Robb said, "walk with me." The heart tree watched with its red eyes. The pool at its base reflected the gray sky. "I need you with me," Robb said. "When we march south, I need someone I can trust absolutely, someone who knows King's Landing, someone who can help me navigate this." "I'm a bastard," Jon said. "I can't. You're my brother." Robb interrupted. "In everything that matters, and I'm the king, I can make you whatever I want." Jon Stark, legitimized, a true-born son of Eddard Stark. Jon's breath caught. "You can't. I can. And I will, if you'll accept it." Jon stared at Robb. The crown sat awkwardly on his auburn hair. He looked too young for it, too uncertain. But his eyes were steady. "I don't want it for the name," Jon said quietly. "I want it because I want to help you. Because Father saved me my whole life. Now it's my turn to save him." "Then help me," Robb said. "As Jon Snow or Jon Stark, I don't care. Just help me bring him home." "I will," Jon promised. "Whatever it takes." They gripped forearms, king and bastard, brothers in truth if not in law. And in the distance, beyond Winterfell's walls, 30,000 northern soldiers prepared for war. 3 months after fleeing King's Landing, Jon Snow stood on Winterfell's walls and watched the final preparations. The army would march south in 2 days. Robb had negotiated with the Freys for passage across the Twins. Supplies had been gathered, routes had been planned, and word had come from King's Landing. Ned was alive, imprisoned in the black cells, but alive. Sansa was being kept in the Red Keep, a hostage to ensure northern cooperation. The Lannisters were offering terms. Ned would confess to treason, take the black, go to the wall. In exchange, Sansa would be freed. Robb did not trust it. Neither did Jon. But it was a chance, a negotiation. The Lannisters wanted peace, not war. So Robb had sent his own terms. Release Ned and Sansa. Withdraw all Lannister forces from the Riverlands. Acknowledge northern independence. In exchange, the North would cease hostilities. The Lannisters had not responded yet, but Jon knew they would. War was expensive. The Lannisters were fighting on multiple fronts now. Stannis from Dragonstone, Renly from the south, Robb from the north. They could not win all 3 wars simultaneously. Eventually, they would negotiate. And when they did, the Starks would get their people back. Jon touched the sword at his hip, the same castle-forged blade he had carried south. He had fought with it, killed with it. It was not Valyrian steel. It was not legendary, but it was his. Ghost appeared beside him, the white direwolf massive now, nearly 300 pounds of muscle and fur. The wolf's red eyes looked south, toward the lands where enemies waited. We're going back, Jon said to the wolf. We're going to get them. Father. Sansa. Everyone the Lannisters took from us. Ghost's ears pricked forward. The direwolf understood, in whatever way wolves understood. Behind them, Winterfell's gates stood open. The northern army was assembled, 30,000 men under the direwolf banners. Robb Stark, the young wolf the king in the north, would lead them south, and Jon Snow, the bastard who saw what lords could not, would ride at his side. The Game of Thrones had taken everything from them. But the game was not over. The north remembered. Winter was coming, and the wolves were going home. 4 months after the flight from King's Landing, a prisoner exchange took place at the ruins of Harrenhal. Robb Stark, king in the north, met with Tyrion Lannister, acting hand of the king in his father's absence. The terms were simple. Ned and Sansa for a cessation of northern hostilities and a prisoner swap, several Lannister soldiers Robb's forces had captured. The exchange happened at dawn. Ned Stark walked across the field between the armies, his legs shackled, his face gaunt from weeks in the black cells. Sansa walked beside him, pale and frightened, but whole. Robb met them halfway. He embraced his father, his sister, his family restored. Jon watched from the northern line, Ghost at his side. He saw Ned's eyes find him across the distance, saw the relief, the pride, the gratitude. They had done it. Against everything. Against the Lannisters, against fate, against the game itself. They had brought the wolves home. The northern army turned and marched back toward Winterfell. The war was not over. Joffrey still sat the Iron Throne. The realm was still fractured. Winter was still coming. But the Starks were together, and together they were strong. Jon rode beside Robb, Arya on his other side, Ned and Sansa in the wagon behind them. Ghost loped ahead, white against the gray northern sky. They were going home, to Winterfell, to the north, to the place where wolves belonged. And whatever came next, whatever wars, whatever winters, whatever darkness waited beyond the wall, they would face it as they had always faced it. As pack, the story ends with the Starks reunited and returning to Winterfell. Ned and Sansa have been recovered through negotiation, not war. Robb is king in the north. The realm remains fractured between Joffrey, Stannis, and Renly, but the immediate Stark crisis is resolved. Jon has proven his worth as Ned's eyes in the shadows, has saved Arya, and has helped bring the truth north. The family is whole. No cliffhangers. The wolves are home. Let us know what you'd like to see next in the comments section below. The end.